Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be going over the Buyer Tenant Representation Agreement and the reasons why it is so important for you to use this document in your buyer consultations. One, it creates that fiduciary responsibility and the agency relationship. And if you can explain this thing confidently and accurately, it's going to build trust in your lead. They know that you know what you're talking about. And then there's some parts of this document that if you just send this to them for e-signatures, they may read it and get a little bit nervous, and there may be an extreme lack of trust because it talks about commission. This is Living an Epic Life in Real Estate, guys, and this channel is dedicated to you, to helping you become more and more educated and proficient at your business in real estate. If you haven't watched some of my other videos explaining some of the other most common documents that you'll be using here in Texas, go to the page, find them, learn about them. See, the worst thing that we can do as real estate agents is practice on our clients. If we're not understanding these documents before we go out there and use them, then we're definitely practicing on them. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been able to put my clients in the position of leverage against the other side of the transaction simply because I knew these documents and the other side did not. So without further ado, let's get started on the Buyer Tenant Representation Agreement. All right, so paragraph 1 is pretty simple. Whenever I'm doing a buyer consultation and I get to this part, what I do is I will slide this document in paper. Yeah, we still use paper over here. I'll slide the document over to the lead and say, hey, if there's two of them, which one of you has the better writing? And then I'll instruct them to fill out paragraph number 1. If it's just one person, I'll just put it over, say, can you go ahead and fill out paragraph number 1? We're using an assumptive close, and of course there's some things that led up to that. So if you want to know what those are, hit me up and I'll help you with that. But it's very effective. And then once you pass this over to them, if they start filling it out, you know you're good, right? All you gotta do is work your way through it. So that's paragraph 1. It should have you and your broker. Here's all of our brokerage information, email addresses, phone numbers, and all of that. Paragraph 2 says that the client grants to broker the exclusive right to act as client's real estate agent for the purpose of acquiring property in the market area. And pay attention to that word market area. You're going to hear that a few times. Paragraph 3, you've got some definitions. What does acquire mean? Purchase or lease. Closing, it talks about, and the sales transaction means that the date legal title to a property is conveyed to a purchaser of the property under contract to buy. Closing in a lease transaction means a date that the landlord and tenant enter into a binding lease of the property. And then the market area, that's for you to define, right? So it means the area in the state of Texas within the perimeter boundaries of the following areas. That is the areas where you have your expertise, right? So it's very important that you're accurate here, because there's some things that you'll see in a few minutes that refer to the market area that you've put in here. So then property talks about what that means. So paragraph 4 is the term. We do our buyer rep agreements for at least 6 months, but they have to have a start and end date, and that's where this goes. Paragraph 5 talks about your obligations as the agent or the representative of the brokerage. So broker will do a few things. We'll use the broker's best efforts to assist the client in acquiring property in the market area, assist the client in negotiating the acquisition of the property in the market area. Well, it's 2 times we've heard that, and comply with any other provisions of this agreement. So again, we've heard market area twice after the definition section. So that's an important thing, guys, and we've got to be able to assist them in acquiring the property and negotiating that acquisition. So if you're not studying negotiations, can you really live up to that point? You're not natural at it. So hopefully you're studying it. Client's obligations. 1, they're going to work exclusively through the broker in acquiring property in, where you guessed it, the market area, and negotiate the acquisition of the property in the market area only through the broker. They're going to inform the broker or salesperson, other brokers, salespersons, sellers, and landlords with whom they may come into contact with that they're represented by you in your brokerage, purpose of acquiring property in the market area, and we'll refer them to us and then comply with any other provisions of this agreement. So again, market area is huge, guys. Paragraph 7 references representations. So each person signing the agreement represents that they have the legal capacity and authority to do so, to bind themselves to a contract. The client represents that they're not part of a buyer and tenant representation agreement with any other broker for acquisition of property, like you guessed it, in the market area. So here in Texas, it's a big state. So if your market area is where mine is, here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and they're also looking in Houston, and they have a buyer rep in Houston, buyer rep agreement says your market area is DFW or Dallas or Fort Worth or whatever you have, and they're going to Houston, they can do that, right? Because they don't have an agreement with you in that market area. Client represents all information that they tell us is true about their ability to acquire property. If there's a property, or if there's a relocation company, that information would go in paragraph 7D. And then broker is not authorized to execute any documents in the name of or on behalf of client concerning the property. So we can't sign any documents for them, basically is what that's saying. Paragraph 8 talks about intermediary. Now, if you didn't watch the IABS video, go watch that because we go deep into intermediary. So I'm just gonna breeze through this real quick. Basically what intermediary means is that one brokerage is working on the same transaction with both the buyer and the seller. Now, when that happens, the broker can decide to assign the buyer to one person and the seller to another agent. They can also allow one agent to do both. There's some nuances that go on with that. So your buyer has to say whether they're cool with the intermediary or they're not cool with the intermediary. I always leave it checked and I explain it, and people typically go with that. But even if you have this checked and you get into an intermediary situation, there's another document that you have to execute further describing who is representing who with that intermediary. Then it says if broker acts as intermediary under paragraph 8A, broker associate may not disclose to the client that the seller or landlord will accept a price less than what they're asking for. We can't disclose to the seller that the buyer will pay a price more than what they're offering. You can't disclose any confidential information. We treat all parties to the transaction honestly and fairly, and we comply with the Real Estate Licensing Act. Paragraph 9 references competing clients. And what all of this means is that the broker, remember, we're not talking about you specifically as agent, but we're talking about the brokerage as a whole. The brokerage may have other agents representing other buyers, or you may be doing the same, that are interested in that house, right? Those may be considered competing clients. If all these people love this one house and EXP represents a bunch of these people, then it's competing clients. And this paragraph references that. It says client agrees that broker made during the term of this agreement and after ends represent such other prospects, show other prospects the same properties the broker shows to client, and act as a real estate broker for such other prospects in negotiating the acquisition of properties that client may seek to acquire. So we may be representing their competition as well. Paragraph 10 talks about confidential information. And this is an important one. It says during the term of this agreement or after its termination, broker may not knowingly disclose the information obtained in confidence from the client except as authorized by a client or required by law. Broker may not disclose to client any information obtained in confidence regarding any other person broker represents or may have represented except as required by law. So you guys just keep your mouth shut, right? Whatever they tell you, keep between the two of you unless they specifically tell you to go tell somebody else. Or if you feel the need to tell somebody else, ask for their blessing to do that unless you're required by law. Right. Paragraph 11. Now, this is the one where we get the most amount of objections. And I referenced earlier, like if you send this to them for electronic signatures and you don't explain it to them and they read this paragraph, they may not sign. Right. And they may not even ask you questions. They may just ghost you because trust was lost. Sometimes when people read this, their perception of it is that maybe we're trying to get over on them. Right. So it's important not only to know this paragraph, but to be able to explain it and use other parts of other documents to bring into this to show them what really happens here, because this paragraph can be scary. And it says that the parties agree that broker will receive a commission, right? We know we're going to get paid a commission, and you put what percentage you want in there. I put 3%. Of the gross sales price if client agrees to purchase property in the market area. And if client agrees to lease the property in the market area, fee equal to, I just put 30%. You can put 50%, you can put whatever you want in there. And then B, paragraph 11B, references the source of the payment. So broker will seek to obtain payment of the commission specified in paragraph 11A, first from the seller, the landlord, or their agents. And then in big, bold, underlined words, it says if such persons refuse or fail to pay broker the amount specified, client will pay broker the amount specified less than the amounts broker receives from such persons. So what this will do, this will lead a buyer to think that they're going to be on the hook. They say, well, if that's in there, then the other side must not pay, and we may be responsible for your commission. And the fact is that is true, right? It's true, but it's important to educate them on how this actually works. In the MLS, there's an advertisement for commission. The listing broker, before they put the property on the market, they run the numbers and they make sure that there's enough equity in the house to cover the commissions because they want to get paid too. And then the title company disperses those funds right at closing. So your commission as the buyer's agent, the listing broker never even touches it. right? It just comes out through escrow. And in all of the 600 plus transactions that I've done, I've never seen it to where we didn't get paid a commission. Now, could it happen? Absolutely. There's always that room for error here. So definitely explain this to them. Tell them how small the odds are. And I personally tell people, hey, look, if that happens, although this contract says it, I have a lot of say in what would happen there. And you have my guarantee that I would never come after you for commission that you were not expecting to pay for several reasons. And then I go into those reasons. Now, you may have a conversation with them and say, hey, look, guys, but if we go to a property and it's a 2.5% commission, then you guys would be on the hook for that 0.5%. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then they get to make the decision as you move forward, and you've educated them on it and the expectations are there up front. So when is commission earned and when is it payable? This is a good one to know. So a person is not obligated to pay a broker commission until such time as a broker's commission is earned and payable. Both of those things have to be met. So broker's commission is earned when a client enters into a contract to buy or lease property in the market area. So you earned it as soon as you get them under contract. Or client breaches this agreement. Broker's commission is payable either during the term of this agreement or after it ends upon the earlier of, one, the closing of the transaction to acquire property. So when the house closes, it's payable. If the client breaches the contract to buy or lease a property in the market area, so if they go out there and buy a house from another agent in your market area, they have breached this contract, and you would be, your commission would have been earned and payable at that moment. Client's breach of this agreement. So I was wrong. That was if they breach the contract that they have to purchase a home. And then the third one is that they breach this buyer representation agreement. So if client acquires more than one property under this agreement, broker's commission for each property acquired are earned as each property is acquired and are payable at the closing of each acquisition. So if you're representing an investor who's buying several properties in the area, that would apply there. Paragraph D talks about additional compensation. It says if seller, landlord, or their agents offer compensation in excess of the amount stated in paragraph 11A, broker may retain the additional compensation in addition to the specified commissions. So if you're offered a bonus, you get to keep that. Like, it's not something, you can make more than what you're saying in here, but this protects you from making less. So acquisition of broker's listings is notwithstanding any provision. To the contrary, if client acquires property listed by the broker will be paid according to the terms of the broker's listing agreement with the owner. So that's that listing agreement. That's how the broker would get paid there. Paragraph F says in addition to the commission specified under paragraph 11A, broker is entitled to the following fees. It talks about construction. So we put in here that we're going to get 3% from new construction if they do that. We also have this section here that says the broker refers client to any party to a transaction contemplated by this agreement to a service provider, movers, cable company, telecommunications. Broker may receive a fee from the service provider for the referral. Right? There's also another document that you'll use if you do have this sort of a setup that can let them know, hey, we're going to get compensation. This is what that looks like. On our team, we do charge broker admin fees, and that's $4.95. So if you're going to charge broker admin fees to your buyers, that's where you will put that right there in paragraph 11F3. Paragraph G talks about the protection period. So basically what this protection period means is that if this contract expires or is canceled, that there's a period of time that if the buyer goes and purchases a home that you have been the procuring cause on, then you would still be due a commission. Now the caveat to that is that after you have 10 days after this agreement is done to send them a list of all those homes. So do that, and if they go and show those homes or they go look at those homes and buy one, you would be due a commission. However, you're not due a commission if they actually have a buyer representation agreement signed with another broker, because it says in here, this paragraph 11G will not apply if client is, during the protection period, bound under a representation agreement with another broker who is a member of the Texas Realtors at the time of the acquisition is negotiated and the other broker is paid a fee for negotiating the transaction. So if you do that, you're in the protection period, they go out, they sign a buyer rep with another broker, buy a home that you showed them, and the broker's getting paid a commission, you're not going to get anything from this particular paragraph. But hey, it's part of the game. I'm sure that's probably very rare. So escrow authorization says the client authorizes and broker so instructs. Escrow authorized to close a transaction for the acquisition of property contemplated by this agreement to collect and disperse to broker all amounts payable to broker. So then again, going back to how you explain the commission, this is just supporting that. And then you got to put what county you're able to be paying. If you're with EXP, that should say Travis County. Paragraph 12, 13, and 14 is all the legal stuff, right? Mediation. The parties will go to mediation for any disputes that arise. If either party fails to comply with this agreement and makes false representations, then they can be in default. It talks about what happens. If they're in default, says broker may terminate this agreement and client will be liable for the amount of compensation that broker would have received under this agreement if client was not in default. Broker may also terminate this agreement and exercise any other remedy by law. If broker's in default, client can exercise any remedy at law, right? So what happens if they go into default? Attorney's fees, if you guys go to court, prevailing party typically can get attorney fees paid by the other. Paragraph 15 talks about limitations of liability, more legal mumbo jumbo, says that we're not responsible for things that are broke or people that are hurt if we didn't actually do that. Paragraph 16, this is where you would check any other documents that are going to be part of this agreement. I always have the information about brokerage services, the IABS check, because that's 100% going to be there. And then wire fraud. Our brokerage requires us to do the wire fraud thing, so I check those too. Special provisions, typically don't put anything here. Last page talks about additional notices. So one, broker's fees and the sharing of fees are not fixed. We do all that on our own. Nobody tells us how to roll with that. We act in accordance with the fair housing laws and the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics. We just don't discriminate against anybody for any reason. We're not a property inspector, we're just real estate agents. We're not pest inspectors, appraisers, or any of those other type of professionals. If they need those things, they gotta go hire somebody who is actively doing that type of work. If a client purchases a property, they can have an abstract covering the property examined by an attorney of client selection. It's typically what happens with the title policy, because it says, or client should be furnished with or obtain a title policy, and that's what's gonna happen most of the time. Client may purchase a residential service contract, otherwise known as a home warranty. Talks about that. They should review the service and the scope of coverage and the limitations. Purchase of a residential service contract is optional. There are several residential service companies operating in Texas. So you would work that out through your purchase contract and see who's paying for it if you get one. So when viewing a property, client may be recorded. This is just letting them know, hey, people have cameras, audio and visual in their home, so be careful what you say in there. And then paragraph G, the last one here, talks about wire fraud. If you're with EXP, we also have another wire fraud document to give to them, but basically it's just making them aware. Hey guys, wire fraud is real. Be careful who you send money to through wires. Verify, then double verify you're sending it to the right place. And then it says that we are not attorneys. We can't give legal advice. If they want legal advice, then they need to go and seek out an attorney. And maybe you have some good references for them. And then you get everybody's signatures at the end. So that is the buyer-tenant representation agreement in a nutshell. If you guys are not comfortable explaining to that, keep rewatching this video and learn this document. Learning this document will help you to get more business than you can ever even imagine, because it's going to help you establish trust, you as the expert, knowing how all of this works, and people will be willing to follow you through the process, knowing that you've got their back, you know this document, you know all the other documents. They're gonna feel a lot safer. Guys, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications when more videos are posted. Like this video and share it, comment below. Let me know what other topics you would like training on, and I'd be glad to make more content based off of what your needs are. Thank you guys again so much. This is Living an Epic Life in Real Estate. I'm Jeremy Smith, and I will see you next time. Peace.